welcome to the AREAA Commercial Coffee Series. This is the first AREAA Commercial Coffee that we're doing. It's our inaugural event, and I am Ritu Rani. I am your National Commercial Chair, and we're going to be doing this monthly. And we're going to be talking about different events that affect commercial real estate. We'll have speakers that have been very successful in their careers, and they're going to share their stories. So today, our first speaker is going to be Prakash Khemlani, who is the founder and owner of the Vision Pacific Group. And very excited to have him here today. Prakash he's went to UPenn. He grew up in Hong Kong, and he founded Vision Pacific Group in 2005. And he started as a supplier, and then he's branched out into custom design, and he's done a lot of projects in the hospitality, retail, and office space, including Le Ritz Paris. He's done some Kate Spade. He did the Bloomberg offices in India, among many others, Hakkasan as well. So we're very excited to have him here. And with that, I'd like to welcome Prakash this morning. How are you, Prakash?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Rita. Pleasure to be on your very first series of Many to Come.
Yes, okay, great. So I wanted to start and ask you, Prakash, since you're really an expert in design, that's what this webinar is about. It's about design and how that affects, our perceptions of things and, how we can really increase commercial revenues, everything from that. So let's talk about the softer side first, just design in general. And let's start with retail, for example. You've done Kate Spade. Tell me a little bit about, how the design can really affect a retail space in terms of either, what's at checkout or the fixtures or, whatever it is about design that really speaks to people and makes them want to purchase.
Well, if you look at, so you use Kate Spade as an example. Basically, a design is critical in that it invites the customer to go in, makes them feel comfortable. It's an emotional
Mm-hmm.
experience, right? And it's very important for the brand to engage the customer and then obviously lure them into buying the product. So a lot of these designs are tailor-made to the market segment they cater to. So Kate Spade obviously reaches out to a certain clientele. They like the colors, they obviously like the product, but it sits well with the rest of the pieces of furniture and joinery in the space and the way it's laid out. Even the kind of fixtures that are there, the overall finishes they use, the bronze, the lacquer finish on the wood. Uh, so the overall space actually matches what an owner, a buyer is actually looking for. I mean, they just feel comfortable, relaxed, and invited, and they feel they belong there. That's
So
that's that's what it feels like for, for a brand to engage their potential clients.
So does it make a difference, I'm a woman, I'm going into one of these Kate Spade stores, just the not only the placement of the product, but the spacing between the fixtures or what they're the merchandising, so to speak. How does the design really play into what can be merchandised where in the store?
Well, if you go into one of these mid to high end stores, you'll find that things are not cluttered.
Mm-hmm.
They're quite well spaced out. Every product sort of gets its warranted space. They get the attention, right? So obviously, then that in itself becomes sort of an interior fit out of the space. The ease of moving around, how they navigate you through products. I mean, if you look at a supermarket,
Mm-hmm.
the high end ones are quite inviting in
Right.
that they navigate you through space. The same for high end retail. So that's how they differentiate themselves from the mid to lower end brands, in that they charge a premium, but it's all really well thought out as to how you have the entire experience in the store.
Okay, so you're saying it ties into the branding, it ties into, the emotional feeling, and then,
Yeah.
on the on the real estate side, which is what a lot of the audience is interested in, also it ties into the rents that you can charge for that retail space if it's um,
Yeah, I mean, it ties into
done.
rents. There are landlords that look for certain brands. So Kate Spade's one of them. We've worked with a bunch of other brands as well, and these are the brands they want to lure in. So you'll have, malls which will um, say, well, these are the brands that we want, and then we'll give them better deals, and they're the anchor tenants, and then they'll draw the rest in to give that entire space a standard. I mean,
Hmm.
not just the store itself, but the mall
Right.
for that matter. At the same time, you will also have a situation where you will have, if you're an owner of a brand, you will see, and I've experienced this with one of my clients. It's a French client with brands all over the world. Um, Going from pre-renovation to post-renovation, they see a 40 to 50% increase in sales just by renovating.
Okay.
So it hits the bottom line directly. I mean, while it's an experience, that experience translates clearly into a bottom line result. So it makes
Okay.
sense for owners to take even their brand, refresh it every 5, 10 years, and the results are there to be seen.
So it's a helpful thing for small business owners also, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, this is something they
Okay.
should think about because it's kind of hard to find the impact it has, not just on the overall experience of the buyer, but um, there is an impact on the bottom line. There's an impact to increasing brand value as well.
And how about, we've talked about experiential shopping and you've mentioned it a little bit. Is there an example of something that you can that comes to mind where you walk into a store and
Um,
you feel like you've entered another universe, and that is then making the consumer want to spend more time there, spend more money there, or pay for that experience, so to speak?
all right, so I'll use an example of an Argentinian polo brand, which we did all the fit outs for in Asia. Uh, I'm not sure if a lot of people know about it. It's called La Martina.
Hmm.
They sell polo
There's an
wear.
outlet here in the US, I believe.
There's one in Florida, yeah.
Hmm.
So if you walk into that space, you feel you walked into this old chateau or a little colonial building with interiors that are oak paneled. I mean, that is truly an experience through time. Um,
Hmm.
and you're picking out polo wear, you're picking out saddles.
Right.
They're pieces that we did for basically placing saddles on saddle holders. I mean, that was part of the joinery we manufactured. So it's literally an experience for, again, that clientele of polo players who walk in and feel like they're home, like they're
Right.
really their space, and as a result they'll buy stuff. I mean, they would have shopped anyway, but it just augments that entire experience. And then you also have a clientele that feels, okay, well, we're not polo players, but this is a space we want to shop in, and a brand we can start believing in. I mean, the product basically takes its own identity once it's created in that it's placed in that space.
Right, right. So let's move on to office. I know you've done
Mhm.
some office as well. How does doing a new fit out or a new redesign of an office help for, the productivity of the business?
Well, you got to realize you're spending a lot of time in the offices, and I mean, now not now with
Not
COVID, but
not as much,
yeah,
right?
yeah, but that was where you spend, depending on what you're doing, between 10 to 8 to 12, 15 hours a day. So we did Bloomberg's office in Bombay. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted to create a space while it was professional, but at the same time, it just felt like home because they would make sure a lot of people were working ridiculous hours and spending a lot of time in the office. They created a pantry area where they just felt that they could just hang out and
Mm-hmm.
chit chat and really be able to take about, there were segments of that office that didn't feel like it was a corporate atmosphere.
So
So and then the whole um, emphasis on materials details. So obviously, when we work with Bloomberg, we worked with Perkins and Will out of Chicago and their reps in Bombay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were very specific in the kind of material, details, finishes they wanted in that space. So obviously, it came down to because they want all their offices to look the same
Right.
geographically. It's not always possible procuring all the materials, and
Of
we have
course.
the know-how and resources to do that, and that's how it goes down to right from not just the design of the space and the way it flows and the overall emotional elements, but even down to the very detail of the kind of materials used. And everything to the letter pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
That's defined day one, and that's what we work with in terms of delivering. So yeah, it's very important for if you look at Bloomberg's offices, if you look at
Yeah.
and there are a bunch of other examples out there as well. Those spaces are very inviting, and people want to work there because
So
they
the
just think it's
productivity, you would
productivity
say.
and just the overall feel and sense of belonging. You want to work in an office that's got a certain recognition standard for the way it's designed versus, and then and therefore you want to work for that company as well. So I've heard
Yes.
those comments as well, where people choose, obviously the company, the culture, and the culture is also defined by the space. If it's stifling, if it's not very inviting and not very accommodating, those are the kind of people that they tend to attract as well.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think it's not only the company culture and the productivity, but I think it's also, the outward image towards clients wanting to come in and
Yeah.
thinking, okay, well now I'm at, this is really a top end firm um, that looks and feels a certain way that gives that image also. So it can help business that way as well,
Well,
definitely.
you're right about that. When we did Bloomberg's offices, I mean, this is a space where they've got the CEOs and CFOs and presidents coming in for interviews. Obviously, it's got to be a place that they feel that not only have they arrived, but they have a sense of belonging as well. Yeah, you are inviting the upper echelons to these offices, and it's got to be above and beyond a certain standard.
Right, right. So I wanna move on to my favorite, which is hospitality, as many of our audience knows, and I know you've done a lot with hospitality products. So, we talked a little bit about experiential in retail, and it exists in office, but hospitality is definitely an experiential product. So, in your opinion, with hospitality renovations, what do you think is the most important aspect of a renovation as far as boosting stuff like your room rates or the food and beverage? What do you think is the most important thing that you've seen?
Well, I mean, look, I've done it. The bulk of our work is in hospitality as well. We've covered a whole breadth of hotels, from resorts to city hotels to high-end palace hotels and in Paris. Um, Again, it depends what kind of client you're catering to. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at where it really matters is obviously the medium to the top end. Um, the rooms have got to be key. So when you look at what a customer really wants, first and foremost, is a comfortable bed. You see a
Mm-hmm.
lot of comments about beds and and on Booking.com, TripAdvisor, and that's why certain brands insist on their bed system. So you have a Western Heavenly bed. You've got obviously all the top ends have their clearly defined bedding products. So
Right.
that's one area that clients look at. Then the overall space and layout of the room, they know exactly what a Hyatt room looks like versus a Hilton room versus
Mm-hmm.
a Marriott, and again which brand in Marriott or the Starwood brands. So it all comes down to a certain look and feel in the space. Again, the level of comfort and rooms are key because a lot of hotels, while they have a lot of F&B outlets and lobbies and so on, sure, you're the 5 stars where you walk in and you just feel comfortable, you feel you've arrived and so on. But you see a lot more product out there where rooms are accentuated versus public spaces.
Hmm.
And and then restaurants are a separate experience because quite a number of brands are leased out. So you'll have
Right.
a particular hotel. I'll say, look, I'll operate the rooms and I'll lease out my restaurant spaces, but I want to create that mix. Um, so I think it starts with the rooms being comfortable and being inviting and just having the amenities you need. You don't want to walk in and look for switches in different places. You sort of know
Right.
where they are. I mean, for frequent travelers, that's the thing. And then if you're looking at luxury spaces, obviously you're looking for a little more posh in terms of furnishings and soft furnishings and fabrics and so on. And the other thing that clients look for, I think hotels have finally heard, is lighting. Your lighting has to be pretty good in the
Hmm.
room. I mean, if you look at rooms that were done 10, 20 years ago, you've got one light in
Right.
the middle of the room and it doesn't really, glare over the area quite well. And then there are areas where there are clearly blind spots. So with the uh, growth and better use of LED lighting and strip lighting, you've seen that really change in the whole definition of the room.
Yeah, I think that lighting is crucial, and I think one other thing that you've been talking about. I think this consistency, that's the hardest thing. It's like you do a renovation, and
Right.
you have to keep with the look and feel of the space, and then do it throughout the entire space, whether it's the retail outlet or the office or the hotel. You can't just do the rooms without doing the lobby. You've got
Mhm.
to, if you update
It's
it, there
got, it's
needs
got,
to be
it's got to
some.
come together as a design.
Yes.
You see elements are repeated in the room that are in the lobby. You have motifs about the place,
Yeah.
and that's what's soothing. I mean, a lot of people, uh, I wouldn't say understate the importance of design, but once you're in a well-designed space, you
Hmm.
see how it affects you, and then
Right.
then that's where not only do you feel a sense of comfort, but you actually feel you want to spend more time there. You're happy to spend more money there. It all. I mean, that's how the whole thing translates into an experience.
So, we have a lot of brokers on, as our audience, and, some
Right.
small business owners, brokers trying to get listings on properties. Right now, why do you think it's a good time to do a renovation, or do you think this is a good time to do a renovation? I mean, for me personally, I would think that because there's a down time in the retail space and the hospitality space, the hotels are kind of empty, the office buildings, it would be a better time because it doesn't disrupt people. But I'd like your opinion on what you think about doing a renovation, and having agents maybe talk their clients into doing a renovation so that they can perhaps get ready to sell, because with all these points that you've made about making a space more comfortable and livable, you could definitely get a higher sales price for it if you do some type of renovation work.
It's no better. This is the best time to do a renovation. I mean, you never look at city hotels. You never seen
Mm-hmm.
occupancy rates about 10, 20%. These hotels are empty. So if
Mm-hmm.
your hotel is run down, first of all, you got to take a view. I mean, if you think the market's going to come back in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, this is your only downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've been in hotels where we've renovated while hotels are completely full. It is very difficult. It's a nightmare because your renovation time actually goes longer. You can make noise while you're renovating. You're
Right, because
disturbing
it's
clients.
affecting the guests,
You're
and you have
basically,
to
yeah,
lower
and
the room rates.
correct. You've lowered the room rates and you're affecting the overall experience of the hotel. And it's always
Mm-hmm.
a fight between the contractor on site and
Mm-hmm.
the management company. They want the space neat and clean, and there should be no noise, and there should be certain hours you're working at. I mean, at this time you can start at 8 in the morning, go till 10 at night. No one's going to disturb you. Now, having said that, your renovation costs for doing it in a downturn are going to be 40 to 50% less on average because of the on-site, the time spent on site. You can cut down if say you're going to do a renovation that's going to take you 12 months, in this
Right.
case, it'll take you 6 to 7 months because you can speed through it. Um, There is no better time to do renovation than now. I mean, COVID that way for hotels that want to renovate is a bit of a blessing in disguise. If
How about
you
offices or
um,
retail? Would you say the same
offices
thing?
need a bit of need a bit of rethinking and redesign, right? How to make it more COVID adaptable.
Hmm.
You are seeing office space. Like I've been speaking to a bunch of designers about this as well. They're basically on the drawing board at the moment because you are seeing a lot of people working from home and permanently working from home, which means offices will have to go from being permanent workstations to a complete redesigned space and maybe more meeting spaces versus actual workstations. So,
Right.
but they are not going away. They'll just be redefined. Obviously, the market will be a lot less. Um, you won't have as many people going to work at the same time as we did previously. I mean, that may have permanently changed, but you will see a massive redesign in that space. And again, you can't, maybe like I said, there might be more meeting spaces. They might be in a way where it's still COVID friendly. You can still have the meetings while, being relatively secure that you are in a safe space to have the meeting despite COVID. There'll be more outdoor spaces to, incorporate into offices.
Yes.
I mean, there's a whole, and the same with restaurants. You see more outdoor dining with restaurants. They just have to make that shift. So the design elements there, and in any one of these segments, if you want to stay in business, you have to rethink how you're going to design your space, how you're going to
Right.
continue business, right? If you think the COVID's fundamentally changed and the market's never coming back, then obviously it's time to get out and let someone else do it who feels there is a potential going forward.
Okay, so it sounds great. This is the best time, and when there are less impediments with people staying in hotels or people using the offices, or the best time to renovate because you need to adapt to the new conditions, right?
Hmm.
How do owners pay for this? If you're a broker trying to convince an owner to sell something, and the owner's like, well, that's great, but my revenues are down 50% because nobody is coming into my store, and now you're telling me to renovate this or renovate this hotel so that I can sell it because I'm in trouble. How does someone convince someone to do that
Um,
right now so they can, show that they know what they're talking about to get a listing?
well, it's again, if you made the decision that the market's going to come back, and there's a need to renovate your space because it is run down.
Hmm.
Uh, then you just have to pull, once you made the decision to renovate, um, traditionally you just go to you dip into your own cash flow, which you're
Right.
right at the moment
Right.
is quite
It's
strapped,
low.
or
Yeah.
or you go to your local bank or your existing bankers,
Hmm.
right? And you just use existing lines of funding, which again are challenged. I mean, banks aren't lending what they were before. Owners don't want to put as much cash into any kind of major upgrades. A lot of capex plans have gone on hold, but there are some pretty interesting options in the market at the moment. We're looking at furniture leasing, so actually doing
Okay.
fit outs whereby we provide the lease to the owner. The owner doesn't have to pay day one. I mean, they have 5 years to pay it. Obviously, this depends on their credit and whether our funders are comfortable with it and willing to lend against that. But essentially, in a world where you would do renovation and you would use your bank loan, or in the absence of bank loan, you had to front up the cash yourself. There are options to that in the market today. I mean, leasing's uh, becoming quite popular. It's getting a bit of attention. We work with a bunch of clients to put that in place, and basically you're matching your um, uh, your fit out against your cash flow for the next 5 years,
So
and
what
that's
what
a great way to
happens?
fund it.
Okay, so what happens after the 5 years? You've leased all this furniture. What
Well, you
happens
have
to
the
all those
option of
tables and chairs in the restaurant?
correct. You have the option to buy it after 5 years,
Hmm.
or you can renovate, after. So it's
Again,
between five to
okay.
7 years, and hotels tend to do that. There is one model we're looking at where they want to buy some of it and then renovate the rest of it.
Right. Hmm.
So it just gives them pretty much a very access to a funding model that can also be perpetual, right?
So are you able to do that right now if people
We
have
are able to
clients
do that,
in the
believe it or not,
US, internationally? I know you
particularly in the
do.
U.S., but it's also available elsewhere.
Okay.
U.S. because it's more established.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't had the take up it should have had, but it's the model's more established. And yeah, I mean, we look at clients from even smaller clients who say they want well, our benchmarks are usually are half a mil in
Mm-hmm.
terms of a full project cost, but we can go a little lower. I mean, the funders we work with are aware that times are challenging and they're smaller owners who might need access to this. So long, in a nutshell, you don't have um, an owner doesn't need to fund this out of cash, especially right now when times are
Mm-hmm.
challenging. There are funding options available. Luckily, interest rates are low. So while this is a high risk industry, there's still the low interest rates still translate in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there are funding options available for doing renovation at the moment, and up to 100% in some cases.
Okay. Okay. Wow. I'm just looking at the questions to make sure that, we get everything from the audience. We have one from Aziz in Canada. How does a hotel owner or commercial landlord finance a reno project with no cash flows? Can you do this on a project with zero cash flows? Or
Well,
is there
I
availability
mean,
for that?
if they're looking at a new property, because then the funders will look at the track record of the owner. If this is someone who's building his first hotel, obviously it's going to be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's someone who has a couple of properties and they have decent cash flow, there are funders willing to take a bet on that. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, when you say zero cash flows, you're talking about a new property, or you're saying a property is currently challenged. Owners know that there's one project we're looking at which is a standalone, zero cash flows till 2024. The banks are still willing to fund it based on the track record of the owner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Or
Interesting.
in this case,
Right.
a couple of owners involved where one's got a clear track record in managing a hotel, and the other one is a pure investor.
Okay, okay. We have another question from Amy Kong, who is our president. She's asking, would open space office style, is that still going to keep going after COVID, do you think?
I mean, having spoken to a few designers, they are still looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at a model with temporary bubbles,
Right.
uh, but the open space is still there. Uh, they're looking at acrylic bubbles as well, so you can still see your coworkers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a lot of it's on the drawing board. The open space is not going to go away because people need that interaction. So I'd say probably, a year, 2 years when things do get to some level of normalcy. I'm not saying it'll get back to 100%. Uh, I think we'll pretty much get back to that with people who are comfortable in that kind of space.
Okay, okay, great. There's a question from Anna, who's here in Miami. She's on the Miami board. She's asking if you happen to know who's doing the Delano Hotel Reno, or the W. I do not know.
I do not know, but I'd like to find
Okay.
out.
Okay, Anna, sorry. We tried. Prakash, if you could, do you mind if people want to reach out to you to talk to you about renovations? Are there any business owners or any realtors that have
Look,
questions about
I'll
any
be
of
happy
that?
to receive
Okay.
call communication, get in touch.
Do
They
you
can
want to
contact me. They can
share?
contact
Yeah,
you as
they can
well.
contact. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can always contact me. I can put you in touch with Prakash. Do you want to share your email or any of your contact
Yeah,
info with?
absolutely. You can share my email. I've got my full, you mean here on screen now, or?
Yeah, I just tell people what it is.
Yeah, okay. So how do I do that? Put it in the
Uh,
chat.
you could put it in the chat, or you can just say it,
Okay,
whatever
yeah.
you want.
Well, should we just shoot out a message and would that be easier?
Yeah, I can do that to all the attendees afterwards.
Okay.
Um,
Anyway, my email is Prakash, Prakash,
mhm.
at visionpacificgroup.com. That's VISIONPACIFICGROUP.com.
Okay,
And that's
guys.
the best way to get in touch with me because right
You're
now
in
I'm in
Hong
quarantine
Kong
in
right
Hong
now.
Kong, in quarantine in my hotel room. Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's not for long. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and always thanks to Amy Kong for being our leader this year, and to Jazz Miranda and Vanessa Shields, who work very hard behind the scenes to make sure all the tech stuff goes off. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Okay, bye
Thank you very much.
everyone.
Thanks, Rita, and
Thanks,
thanks for the
Prakash.
opportunity.
Okay.
All right.